All right, guys. Super excited to be joined by this next man, celebrating an incredible win in the main event of UFC 316 with his man, Merab, securing a third-round submission over Sean O'Malley. Coach John Wood, I mean, you predicted it, man. What a dominating performance by Merab.
Yeah. Yeah, people just don't understand how good this guy is and how good he is getting. He's still just learning and getting better every day, every camp. And these are the things I keep telling people. Like there's been a lot of people giving me shit about, oh, you don't know your fighter, you don't know this, you don't know he's not a finisher. Well, that's the goal, is to get him to be a finisher. The goal of every fighter is to try to finish, win fights first, but along the way with what Merab brings to the table, like he's got a different level that people can't compete up, or they can't keep up with. So he breaks people, and now you're going to see him finishing people.
Mm. Hey, tell me a little bit about what you thought of this version of Sean O'Malley that you got in there. Obviously, it looked like he, was in better shape. He wasn't as injured, but at the same time, it didn't really make too much of a difference, right? Like you guys were able to dominate in every area, really.
Yeah, everybody's got their excuses of why they lost a fight or why this or why that. And I'm not saying that he wasn't injured. He had surgery, so clearly he was injured.
Mhm.
There was things going on there, but I didn't buy into the whole hype of, we're stopping this and we're starting this and we're gonna do the things the right way. And that's great. Good for him. I'm glad that he was getting stuff together. I like Sean, I like Tim. I think they're good guys. But you gotta realize, like, things that they're talking about is stuff that Marab's been doing from day one. He's been doing all those things that Sean now is just starting to do. He's been living his life like that, training like a champion. Like I said, he's only getting better. And there's a reason why he's the best in the world. If arguably not one of the best ever in the world. So, it wasn't anything where it was just like, oh my God, you could start to see the hype train go on again with Sean, and everybody obviously is a marketing machine getting behind Sean and doing what they're supposed to do. So you start to kind of look, and go, oh, maybe there is something crazy here, but I wasn't really buying into it too much.
Mm. There was obviously a lot of success from you guys in this fight. One of the more impressive things was the improvements that Merab showed in his striking. Like he stood there with Sean and he showed us some of the, improvements that you were talking about. How proud of you were you of him in that round? I think it was the second round where he was standing with Sean. He was able to show us, some of the stuff that he's been working on. Some of those beautiful,
Yeah.
was it 2-3-2s that he kept throwing, hitting Sean with some beautiful stuff in that octagon.
Yeah, again, he's so green in certain areas, and striking obviously being one of those areas where you're going to see the biggest improvements because of, that was maybe, where he's lacking the most. But I mean, Marab's timing, his vision is amazing, and there's reasons, like I said, why people become champions, and there's those things that play into it, and that's one of them. He's got all those things, and now he's getting confident with him. What I see him do every single day in the gym with some of the best guys in the world is that was easier than his sparring. That was way easier than what he goes through in the gym. We have harder rounds on the pads. That dude literally tries to rearrange my intestines every time we go and hit the pads. Like he's the only guy that I would say breaks me when we're going pad, like when I'm doing, pad work with him. So his striking, he's just a sponge, and that's obviously, like I said, that area is probably was lacking the most. So you're going to see the biggest improvement over time. But don't be surprised if, honestly, you might see some knockouts from Rob in the future. The biggest point of getting Rob to be better at everything was just getting his feet underneath him, his footwork. Now he
Mhm.
has that. And like I said, I said something the other day. It's just he's unlocking the door. He's unlocking these certain areas that opens up the door to all this other stuff. So now he's like a kid in a candy store, being able to play around with striking, being able to play around with submissions, being able to play. The submission he hit in this one is just one he messes around with. Like I told him, dude, just start going for stuff. When you start to see the openings, go for it. You'll be surprised. You're going to start hitting these things.
Yeah, talk me through that submission. Is that one that you guys usually see much of him doing in the gym? Because that was pretty cool. Like
Yeah,
him transitioning in, what was that? Like a north, south.
yeah,
What was it? Like,
like a north south ninja choke. It's kind of a
yeah.
variation of a couple of things, and so it's one I see him doing when he's grappling. It's one I see him doing like it's not one that we go over a ton, but it's one that he likes. It's one that he hits on his own all the time, you know. And we do a lot of, like I said, a lot of chokes, a lot of head and arm chokes, a lot of rear naked, a lot of just variations. And he's one of those guys that he's very creative, and he's just going to keep getting more and more creative. I've seen him hit it in the gym. Never one, honestly, that we've gone over and like, hey, here's the thing. He's able to pull things off because he's so relentless that it just makes guys. And I, honestly told him for this fight, there's going to be a point in time, and there's a point in time in all the fights he's had before. People start to break, and they don't want to be there, and they actually want you to get them out of there. So take those opportunities and go ahead and help them out.
Mm. What do you think the confidence from, getting this submission and this performance does to Merab, along with the advancements you guys are working on? Because now he knows, like, all right, like
Yeah.
it's all starting to come together. That does a lot for him, right? That confidence
Oh,
after this one.
every single fight, every single camp, every training session. When Rob, I'm telling you, like when he learns something in the gym and he goes and hits it in sparring, he's just like you see his eyes. He literally will stop, look over, and stick his tongue out like, I got it work. So he gets confidence every single time it works wherever, whatever he's doing. So when we have moments like this, I think you just unlocked a beast that's about to go crazy on everybody from here on out, knowing that he has the ability, just he doesn't have to do anything different. He's already doing the hard part. So now when he's confident in getting these submissions and we keep adding, like I said, more tools to the toolbox, you're gonna see a whole different just creature in there. He's going to break people, he's going to beat them up, he's going to bloody them up, he's gonna sell them. It's awesome. Like the guy is just like I said, he's just so willing to learn and eager to learn, and so there's a reason why he's a champion.
You put up this great post. For people that don't follow you, they need to go follow you at Bigwood MMA 702. But yeah, you said in the post, I've been saying it for over a year now, the fun will be turned into finishes. What did this performance and what did this win to you personally? Obviously, you've been backing Merab now for a while. People have kind of been making fun of you online when you say, "Oh, he's going to start finishing people." What did this mean to you personally, being in that octagon after that submission?
Uh, Definitely a big one, man. This is probably one of my favorites, if not the favorite moment I've had with him. Just validating what I've already known, for the last 5 years. I think I've been working with Merab for about 5 years now, and just seeing what he's capable of doing. And there's certain people you got to kind of slow play things with, and we've slow played this to just build him up, never forcing. It was only about a year ago, really a year and a half ago, a year ago, where I started pushing like, hey, dude, you're like I said, each time we kind of unlock a new level with him, we kind of add some things each camp. And so the last two camps have been like, man, let's get to those finishes. So yeah, I took a lot of shit, and I've taken a lot of shit, and people, like I said, saying, "Oh, you don't know your fighter. He's not a finisher. He's not a this. He's not a that." It's like, dude, come on, man. What do you think the goal is? Like, I would be doing him a disservice if I wasn't trying to make him the best I possibly could. And it's syndicate with all the coaches. We're all always trying to make all of our fighters the best they possibly can be. And, that's part of it. So it's definitely a special one. Not even just to be like, hey, I told you so. I mean, I did kind of tell you so, but it's one of those things just for him. I couldn't, I'm just so happy for him with just being able to like really focus on something and go out there and do it. That's the best. Like, there was no doubt in my mind we were winning this fight. And I've even said in other interviews that, hey, Sean's hard to fight. He's never been finished. He's never been, submitted. But there's going to be opportunities for it to happen. And sure as shit, here we are.
Mm. Hey, by the way, obviously you guys had a good camp finally leading into a fight. You guys are walking
Mm.
out, and then a fan
Oh my
falls
God,
over a barricade
dude.
almost like seconds before Merab
No,
was
we almost got
walking past.
crushed.
What were you thinking? You're like, "Oh, you gotta
I
be shitting me, man,"
almost
after a
shit my
decent
pants.
camp.
Like, oh, Merab got pushed out of the way as the thing was falling over, and it fell right in front of us, like almost landed on our feet. There's like 5 fans broke the barricade and fell over, and I was looking for people like being crushed under the damn thing. It was nuts, man. Like that was a holy shit moment for sure. That was freaky, and by the grace of God, I don't think anybody was hurt. So, ooh, that was an interesting one. That's a first.
God. That's crazy, man. Hey, a lot of people talking about what's next for Sean O'Malley. There are people saying that he should try going up to featherweight with his frame. What do you think, man? Obviously, you're not a part of his camp, but do you think he could find success at featherweight? Do you think he should keep battling it out in your division? What do you think?
You know, he's in a tough spot, dude. I mean, realistically, it's a tough spot to be. You know, former champ coming off 2 losses. I mean, honestly, myself and a lot of people included think that he probably shouldn't have got that title fight. You know, right? The rematch right away. It's a lot of time to sit out, and you know, if he did have to get healed up, that's fine. But he's a very talented guy. He's a talented kid. Jim's a very talented coach. You know, they're both young. They've got time to kind of figure it out, but I don't know. You know, I think that going up and there's some killers at 45, and I don't know that that's the answer yet. I mean, I think that obviously Sean can grow into that frame and he can get bigger and put muscle on, but I mean, I think there's still some work for him to be done at 35. Obviously, I don't think he's getting a title shot again anytime soon.
Yeah.
So if the goal is to win a title, if the goal is to be a champion as quickly as you can, you know, then maybe 45 would be the go. But man, I just don't know. Those boys up there, they're bigger, they're stronger, they hit harder. I wouldn't suggest that just yet. And you never know. Like there's always the crazy thing about MMA is always an ever-changing landscape. You never know what's going to happen. You never know. We've seen crazier shit happen where, you know, he goes and strings some wins together and he might be able to put it right back. The guy's obviously a star. I mean, did you hear like the crowd was insane for him? He hasn't fought for a year. You know, the crowd was batshit crazy for him. So he's obviously got a following. You know, he's only one knockout away from being back to people, you know, going, oh my God, he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, you know.
What about Merab, man? I know he talks about never wanting to go up a division, but you guys have always cleaned out the division. Obviously, you got Cory Sandhagen next, and there's a couple other fights there. But you know, a lot of people are already saying he's the goat of the division. Like, do you see a scenario where if you guys have no one left in the division, it's interesting just to test yourself and go up, or is it a situation where it's like an Anderson Silva, GSP type situation where they spend the majority of their career dominating their division?
For me, you know, it's really cool when people start talking about that, like, you know, hey, you clean out the division and we start looking at super fights. You know, I think we've got a few more before we have that conversation. I'd like to see Morale hold on to that belt and go down as the greatest bantamweight of all time and secure it, you know, and rack up the most title defenses and break all the records. You know, that's what I'd like to see him do. And then obviously those questions and those fights come into, you know, if they come into sight where that's what the UFC wants, Marab's a company dude. He's going to take whatever fight, and if it makes sense and people want to see it, then we'll probably do it. I don't think going up to 45 for us is like, you know, a long term move. He ain't going down to 25. I can tell you that. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think there is some potentially some good super fights out there over the long run, but I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him stay, you know, at 35 for a few years and just dominate and just, like I said, break all the records.
Mm. Dude, you kind of predicted this other thing as well when we spoke, and that is how tough Bautista was going to be for Patchy Mix, right? People expected Patchy to go out there and kind of potentially even secure a title shot, and Mario kind of shut all those people up. What was your reaction when you saw the domination that he put on Patchy Mix in their fight? And were you surprised that Patchy didn't try to go to the areas that he's strongest in, which is kind of like the grappling, and just kind of stood there with him?
Listen, Patch is a very talented fighter, but coming to the UFC and fighting a top 10 guy, and I've had the pleasure, maybe even the displeasure of cornering against Batista a couple times. And like I've had to game plan him, and that dude is good. And he's awkwardly good. He's a guy that can make you look bad at everything you're good at. So I never thought that was gonna be that like I've gone on record and that was a tough first out. And you're coming into that was one of the loudest arenas I've ever been into. And
Oh,
and
wow.
Patchy talked himself up good, like and rightfully so. Like come in, have your swagger, make a name for yourself, do whatever you gotta do. But the UFC is different. And getting in front of that crowd, and especially a crowd like that, and with a guy like that, it's just different. So I'm sure Patchy will be back. I'm sure he'll get it together, and I'm sure that he'll build himself into a position. But no, none of it was surprising. And there's I know what kind of live dog I got in the race, and I don't care who it is. I don't see anybody beating Merab, and I don't see Patchy or Batista or anybody of those guys taking a run at that for a while. And so. Like I said, there's just levels to this stuff, and again, I like Patchy personally, um, but they'll regroup and they'll get it together, and I'm sure he'll have a good run in the UFC.
Mm. So now we've got Cory Sandhagen. I saw he was in the back congratulating you guys and Merab. Kind of cool to see the respect going both ways. But for Cory, for example, and for yourself, how do you see him as a challenge? A lot of people sort of see talking about the fact that he's dangerous on the ground. He can weaponize scrambling positions. He's got submissions from all sorts of areas, so it makes the fight interesting. But ultimately, how do you see that fight between Cory and Merab going as you sort of early game plan it?
Uh, I mean, Corey's a great fighter, and I honestly, I enjoy watching him. I think that he's a very entertaining fighter, and I think he's got like a lot of tools, just like you said, and a lot of things that are going to be tough to deal with. But I do not believe that it's anything different than Marab has seen before. I think it's stuff that we are going to have just a fine time with, and it'll be a fun fight. But I can tell you this, Marab's going to come out ahead on that one.
Mm. Do you see Cory as one of the tougher challenges that you guys have had?
Yeah, I feel like we've kind of fought that style before. He is a tough guy. He's tricky. He's tricky, but like I said, for me, I know Marab and I know what he can do, and I know what we're gonna do. And it's always fun as a coach to game plan against a guy like that. Comes from a great, he's got a great team, great coaches, all that stuff. And I it's interesting, but I really, like I said, I think stylistically it works out great for us.
Perfect. All right. Hey, final question for me. Timeline wise, what are you thinking? Ideally, when would you like this Cory fight to happen? It's obviously not up to you. The UFC has to decide it, but if it was up to you, is there a timeline that works well?
I mean, I think, I wouldn't mind getting a Vegas card, maybe October. Let's see where we're at right now. I think like September might be pushing it, but September, October, I think October would be really good just to give him Rob a chance if he really does want to sneak in two more. The earlier the better. But I think, I'd like to have a card in Vegas that he can stay home and not have to travel and do all this crap. But the thing with him is that dude's going to be back in the gym. We're going to actually head over to Georgia here uh,
Yep.
in a couple days, but past that, within a week, he'll be back full on training, doing his thing. So, I mean, he honestly could take something, August, September, October, pretty easy.
Perfect, dude. Well, we got UFC 320. That's supposed to be scheduled October 4th at the T-Mobile Arena. So sounds
That's the one.
perfect for me, man. In
Yeah.
Las Vegas. I'll let you go because you're about to jump on the plane. But yeah, congratulations to you, John Wood. An incredible performance by you and the team. And of course, best of luck for the next one. Obviously, you got a lot of fun fights. And as you
Thanks,
travel
brother.
the world, taking over. Thank you so much for joining me, man.
Appreciate it, man.